Hello everyone, I'm Pradeepa from Singapore. I'm currently working as a senior software engineer at Discovery Networks. I'm also an Auth0 ambassador. I'd like to take this moment to thank the Avocado Labs team for providing me the opportunity to talk today. Let's get started. Today we're going to talk about PKCE, PKCE, often termed as PKCE, which is expansion for which can be expanded to proof key for code exchange. Let's see what that is, and let's look at the agenda for today. So I'm keeping it simple. This is going to be a 20-minute talk. So we have to introduce some terminologies and what is OAuth 2 before getting to know about what PKCE is. So I'm going to define what is an authorization grant type and how PKCE fits into this talk, this authorization grant type. And I intentionally added why PKCE here because PKCE is we should know why we have to learn PKCE out of all the other authorization grant types, and then we will define what are all the steps that defines PKCE. So let's moving on. So what I want to know is like OAuth defines a standard for authorization. So often people confuse between authorization and authentication. So I just like to take this moment to define what is authorization. Let's compare it with the real-time analogy. This is a gantry reader in a railway station. What we have to do is like to gain access to the platform. We need to buy a ticket, tap the ticket in the gantry, and then if the ticket is valid, we gain access to the platform. What the gantry reader does is checks whether the ticket is valid or not, but it does not check whether who is tapping, does not verify who the identity is, does not check whether is the so and so person or not. So verifying your identity is authentication. The gantry reader does check only whether do you have access to gain, you have permission or privilege to access the platform. If the ticket is valid, you can access. So that's authorization. So let's see what kind of authorization that OAuth talks about. OAuth talks about delegating of authorization between applications. For example, let's say I have a account with Google or Twitter. I have an. I just wanted to know. Wanted to share. I don't want to have an account with another application to perform something. For example, let's say I'm building an application, scheduling a tweet. I don't want people to share their passwords, but instead, if there is a way to give them a specified duration token, the user if the user can provide me the token, I can use that token to call the Twitter API. So I don't want to use their credentials. So there are two level of, they don't want to give me, they don't have to have a high level of trust, and also whenever they don't want me to have their credentials, they can revoke it. So that should be a way of doing this. So OAuth defines how a person who is authenticated in one place can securely delegate an authorization to another application. Let's see. I just want to show a real-time example. This buffer is like a real scheduling tweet application. So what I have to do is like I have to go here and then say click on connect. Since I'm already authenticated to Twitter, what this is going to do is like buffer is going to redirect me to twitter.com where I hold the long-term credentials, where I hold the user ID and password. So it's redirecting me and it's going to ask me like, hey, you go there and then you authenticate yourself in Twitter and then you come back with a token. I'll use that token to schedule a tweet on your behalf. So what Twitter does is like it's asking you whether, hey, someone named Buffer is asking for all these actions. So because you don't know what Buffer is going to do, right? So Twitter is warning us. It's saying like, do you want to perform all these actions? Do you want to authorize Twitter Buffer to perform all these actions? And if I say okay, I'm a resource owner, I say I'm the one who owns the credentials, I say this I say is okay, then what happens is like OAuth of Twitter will share a token to Buffer. So what I will do is I'm going to click authorize app. So what's happening here is something is happening in the background which we don't know what's happening. So now Buffer is connected to Twitter. I mean, eventually we'll see how Buffer will get hold of this token, what's happening in the back channel in the background. But this is what's happening. So there are some exchanges between me as a user talking to Buffer, which is a third party application. And Buffer is like redirecting me to Twitter. So I have a confrontation with the OAuth server of Twitter. I key in my credentials and then I get some authorization, and then this Twitter is redirecting back to the third party application client. So it's kind of a web of transactions that is happening just to make sure this token is safe. The ticket, you remember, like in the railway station, it's equivalent to that. So the token is safe. Yeah, so this is a typical HTTP API request. I just want to show. So once the buffer.com gains access to the token, what it's going to do is like it's going to make this API call and then say post some content, and then it gets HTTP status saying that it schedule a tweet and everything is fine. I didn't share the credentials, and there is a delegation of authorization that's happening. So what is OAuth to talk about? It defines how to securely delegate user authentication to grant authorization, and it also enables third-party application to get a temporary access, and so that it can schedule a tweet or it can access a protected resource on behalf of me. So I'm just authorizing it. Some OAuth terminologies I want to talk about. So since we see the user journey of how an authorization flow works, just want to say who are all the parties involved, what are all the roles played by OAuth 2. There is a terminology called a resource owner. Resource owner is the user who owns the credentials. I have the credentials for Twitter, but I don't want to share the credentials to Buffer. So I am the resource owner. But it is not always necessary for the resource owner to be a physical person. Let's say if there is a two machine-to-machine applications talking to each other, in that case, it will be one resource owner will be the server, which is initiating, it just holds the credentials and can initiate the connection. So the next one is the resource server. As the name says, like that's the place where you hold the resource. So to access the resource, you need a token. So in this case, let's say all my tweets are stored in a server. That is the resource server. So in order to whichever you wanted to access with the token, you can assume that that's a resource server. Who is a client? I think we already mentioned. Client is our application which is trying to get the token, which is trying to use the token. So that is the client. So in this case, Buffer is the client. There are two types of clients actually. One is the public client and one is the confidential client. Public client is something like that operates only in the browser. For example, single page application. Anybody, any application that does not have any secure backend to execute. For example, if a single page application, everything is executing inside the browser. So you can't store some secret credentials inside. Whereas in confidential clients, it can be a web application or it can be machine-to-machine applications, because it can have a backend and you can store some credentials there, just not exposed to the person accessing it. So that's a confidential client. What is an OAuth grant flow? OAuth grant flow means it's how you are going to get the access token. Why they have to define it? Because as I mentioned, once your token is compromised, someone is stealing the token, they can act on your behalf. So OAuth defines a standard in such a way that, hey, if you are this kind of application, use this standard so that your token is secure. If you are a different kind of application, I think you can use this standard. So the grant flows define how to get a token, but that varies based on the infrastructure of the application. So we can broadly classify this application as a web application, single page application, native applications like iOS and Android applications, and machine to machine applications. What are all the different types of authorization flows recommended by OAuth 2.0? So there is one called authorization code flow, which is called code grant, and the other one is authorization code grant with PXE, which is what we're going to talk about today. And the other one is client credentials. So these are all the common grant flows that are available. Some are made obsolete, so I'm not going to talk about it. I just don't want to put that in your mind, so don't worry about it. So why we are talking about PXE out of all the other grant flows? So recently, our Stewart board decided, to recommend any new application if you are building authorization code flow with PXE. It's like you don't have to worry about what kind of application I'm building and then what authorization flow I should pick. Rather, use PXE because that is the highest level of security you have. So even if it's a client credentials, even if it's an iOS and Android, or it's a web application, if you're starting, then use PXE. So what if you have already something else? If you have a secure web application with authorization code flow, it is still okay. But imagine that this is a car, authorization code grant is a car, and then Pixie is like anti-theft, with anti-theft mechanism. So what are you going to buy? So it depends, right? So if you want that extra level of security, and if your application is not handling that vulnerability, go for Pixie. So this is authorization code flow. So what I'm going to do is like I'm going to explain the journey of what is the transactions that are happening between users and the third party application and the person who is holding the credentials, which is the authorization server. So let's get started. And what I'm going to do is like Pixie is built on top of authorization code grant flow. So it's not separate. So it makes sense for us to learn what is a authorization code grant flow and what is that small tweak that has been made that has made Pixie highly secure. So let's start with authorization code grant flow. So in authorization code grant flow, what happens is like when the use, let's say we are the developer, like I'm going to develop a web application, let's say Buffer, and then I'm going to schedule a tweet. So what I'm going to do is like the moment first I decided to create a web application, I'll just go to Twitter authentication server. It's like a developer account. I have to go to Twitter developer account, and then I will say like, hey, I'd like to work with you. I want someone who is logging in to schedule a tweet. So what happens is like once you go to the developer account, you give some credentials. So you will get some client ID and client secret. Think of this as a email ID and password to Gmail. So in order to authenticate whether this Buffer application is genuine or not, Twitter server should know the client ID and client secret. Like your email ID, client ID can be a public one. Like your password, client secret cannot be made public. So that's the difference. So now Buffer application and the Twitter does not now has a standing agreement between them that they can talk to each other provided they provided the client ID and client secret. Now let's say I developed my web application and someone is coming to my application and then say, hey, schedule my tweet. And what I'm going to say is like the Buffer application says like, I would be happy to do that for you, but you know what, I don't have access to a Twitter account. So what I will do is like I'll redirect you to Twitter's authentication server. What you can do is like these are all the information you can carry, client ID, scope, and redirect to URI. This will tell that you're coming from my application, right? So carry this information and then you go there. So now the user is being faced with Twitter's URL. So now we saw the consent page, right? So what Twitter's authorization server is telling us is, hey, I know you have someone is redirecting me to this page, and they wanted to access something, they want to schedule a tweet on your behalf. So these are all the things that they can perform. So it prepares a consent page and give it to the user. The user says like, hey, yeah, I'm the person who initiated this, so yeah, you can give him the access. What this Twitter server does is like now it's ready to give the token, but it will not give the token directly. Instead it will check what is the response type. The response type is code. That's why it is called authorization code grant flow. So why it's giving code instead of token? Because everything is happening in the browser, just a front channel, just public. Anybody can intercept the channel and then get that information. So Buffer application decides to get a code instead of the actual access token. So what it does is like it will just get the code, and then since it has a redirect URL and every information is available, so when the user agrees, Twitter will redirect to this URL and then it will give some code to my application. So it says like, hey Buffer, here is the code you asked for, and then it will give us some code, this web application. So our application is smart. So what it does is like, I intentionally draw this line as a dotted line because all are happening in the browser side. If you look at my previous journey, I have drawn everything as a dotted line. So Buffer application, what does is like it gets the code. If someone is intercepting this information, doesn't matter because the code, without code they can't do anything. So what it does is like the application, it will say is like, okay, let me pass this code to my backend, and yeah, what happens is like the backend gets that code. Initially, if you remember, they got the client ID and client secret. So the backend server will store that client secret inside the system, which is not publicly accessible. So what it does is like it will send the code that is received from the browser, and then it will send the client ID and client secret. If you see this line, this is a hard solid line. So what happens is the communication between these two is like it's a dedicated line and no one can intercept it. So it can get the value, the code and client secret will be sent, and then now this time it will ask for token. So Twitter just checks what is the response, verifies the client ID and client secret because it already has this information, it matches it, and Twitter issued the code only for this client ID, right? So it also verifies that, and then it gives the token. So now buffer application is happy, so it got the token. So what happens is it calls the Twitter API server, and then it will post a tweet, and then it's happy. That's a happy path. Yeah, I think that says for the authorization code front flow. So now we're going to see what is PXE. Everything is going fine and smooth. So what is the PXE? PXE is recommended for mobile application. So that's the reason I have written as a mobile application, but it can be used for all the applications, confidential and the public lines. So assume that this can be any application. Okay, so what happens is like it's the same. The first step is going to be the same. The application, let's say buffer is developing a mobile application. So again what it has to go is like go to the Twitter's developer account and then gets client ID and client secret. Now the second step is like the users coming in and then asking us to schedule a tweet. So please schedule my tweet. So what happens now is like buffer application at this stage, what happens is like if you remember in the previous thing, it will send a client ID and ask for code, but this time it will also send something called code challenge. How does it get this information? It will just generate some random number. That random number is called a code verifier, and then it will create a hash of the random number, which is the code challenge. So it will generate a hash of that code challenge and will send it via the public channel. No one can intercept it. Why do we have to generate this step instead of just sending the client ID? Let's see that. So just remember that it generates a random number and hash it, and it sends only the hash number to the over the public channel. So now what happens? Let's see. Now the user is like the Twitter application prepares the consent page as usual. It doesn't so client ID is public, so it doesn't have to worry about whether it is client ID can be stolen from someone else and then send it. So this, Twitter does not authenticate anything, so it just gets the information and then it prepares the consent page and give it to the user. Everything is the same. Now since it's asked for the code, it will give the code, but some point it has to exchange the code for the token, right? So what happens is like the Twitter or server creates the code and then sends it to the application. Now let's say if our application is smart. Now it's asking the OAuth advisor. I just added some persona here. So can I send my client secret to exchange code for the token? This is my mobile application, right? I also have a client secret here. Whenever I register, I get a secret. So the OAuth advisor says like you're a mobile application, you don't have the secure way to store the client secret. So what you can do is like, remember we in the second step we created the code verifier and code challenge. So OAuth advises to use the code challenge code verifier as a client secret instead of sending the actual secret. So what happens is like the buffer application, when making a call to exchange a code to the auth server, it sends the code verifier, which is that random number, and the client ID and the authorization code it have received, and then asks for the access token. So in the first transaction, it had the code challenge, the hash value just stored here in the authorization server. It just have to match the hash value with this random number, and then if it checks OK, and then it will return the token. So in this way, any infrastructure that does not have any secure way to store the data, the client credentials, we can use this PXE. So initially it's recommended for native applications. So once you get the token, the same thing. So you can post a tweet and then get the token, and then this is the happy story for proof key for code exchange. Okay, so why this is better over the other? So you're generating a dynamic secret every time for every transaction, right? So it's better to have a dynamic secret for one transaction. Even if it is compromised, it's only one transaction, right? The second transaction, again, it will generate a dynamic secret. So this is an overall view of authorization code grant flow. Whatever journey we have so far, they have picturized it in one, but it's not always sometimes it's not happening at the same time. So the user journey which I have mentioned is the actual flow, but this gives it in a single picture. So it will authenticate, and then it will ask for code and then exchange for the token. That's called authorization code grant. But then if Pixie is like, you have to create a code verifier and code challenge. So uh, in the first transaction, you will send that hash value, you get the code, and then you exchange it the hash value with the verifier. So what are all the advantages? So dynamic secrets are generated for every transaction, and for some applications there is no way to store the data. For example, there is no provision for you to store the client secret. Example, our native mobile apps like iOS and Android apps and single page apps, they can't have the secret stored. So the only way for them to get the token is to use Pixie. There are some OAuth flows which are being used in the past, which will actually get the token via the front channel, which is the public channel. So you don't have to do that anymore. So Pixie solves it. That's it for today. I hope you get some idea. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have gotten some basic information about Pixie. Uh, if you like this video, please like and subscribe to this channel. You might get more information about identity and security in this channel. If you have questions about Pixie, please leave a comment here. We will address it later. Thank you.